Hello and welcome to RS Agarwal's IAS. In this video of the Daily News Express, let us discuss the important topics appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 23rd October 2020. Let us start. Well, the first topic is about Lokayta, which caters to GS paper 2 as well as your prelims examination. Now, this aspect of Lokayukta is the counterpart of Lokpal in your states. So, Lokpal is in the center and Lokayukta is in the states. Now, Lokayukta acts as or is the chief anti-corruption or the grievance addressal body, or you can say you can call it an ombudsman for containing corruption in the states. Now, generally or conventionally, the person who is appointed as Lokayukta is the former Chief Justice of the High Court or a Supreme Court judge who serves a fixed tenure. Now, the person is selected by the Chief Minister and is appointed by the Governor of the state. Now, this selection of the Chief Minister is done in consultation with several people, which include the Chief Justice of the High Court, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Chairman of Legislative Council if it exists in the state, then the Leader of Opposition in the Legislative Assembly, Leader of Opposition in the Legislative Council if it exists. After consultation with these people, a person is selected and is told to the governor, who appoints this person as Lokayukta of the state, who takes care of anti-corruption activities and such related activities as an ombudsman. Now they make sure that these kind of activities are not taken care of by the public servants, and they have the power to investigate and the power to provide redressal to the grievances. Now, if you know that this Lokayukta and Lokpal have been very old bodies or have been spoken for from a very long time, but after the Anna Hazare movement for people against corruption, these bodies came into existence, and Lokayukta works in states and Lokpal works at the center. Now we have discussed the detailed aspect of this. After this, let us move on to the next topic. This topic is related to international relations, or in particular Indo-US relations. Now this topic talks about the 2+2 summit, which is going to be held on October 26th between India and USA, and this is going to be the third annual summit that will take place. India is not the country that the 2+2 summit is happening with the USA. USA does the 2+2 summit with several other nations, and India has now been a part of it. Now this author has several important topics to talk about, and this article has several takeaways for us from GS paper to international relations, also your prelims examination. Please remember that 2+2 dialogue is done with country USA. Now this author quotes that in the year 2016, when we had this 2+2 dialogue, we had people coming in from USA, who was the Secretary of State that time who was going to be the Secretary of State for Hillary Clinton. Mr. John Kerry was here, and they spoke about how India should accede to the Paris Agreement. Of course, India was also interested in acceding to the Paris Agreement, but then the collaboration of USA in acceding to the Paris Agreement was important, because USA is a developing country and it will help India to take forward its INDCs that is given to the Paris Agreement. It is also important because USA is a developing country and will also contribute funds to the Global Environment Facility as well. Hence, we need to understand that this 2016 summit was important for us, and that time Mrs. Sushma Swaraj was the External Affairs Minister. Now, what happened after India agreed to this aspect and acceded to the Paris Agreement and took forward this kind of negotiations? What happened is the whole flip side turned out, and Mr. Donald Trump was elected as the president and not Hillary Clinton. Now, when Mr. Trump was elected as the president, you know that Mr. Trump is someone who is against this Paris Agreement or who is not favoring this Paris Agreement. He feels that Paris Agreement is unjust towards this towards the developed countries, and he finds the idea of contribution by developing countries does not make sense. But India was okay with it anyway, because India also contributed to curbing the global warming and greenhouse gas emissions in the world. But now, in the year 2020, when the same kind of 2+2 summit is going to take place, and Mr. Mike Pompeo, the current Secretary of State, is going to come down to India, India has to play this game very safe and very fair, because India has a lot of things at stake here. As Mr. Pompeo is coming down, he will discuss about several things with regards to India. He will discuss the Indo-Pacific plan, about how it's going to pan out in the Indo-Pacific region. He is going to talk about India's commitment to trade. He is going to talk about the groupings like Quad. He's going to talk about the Shangri-La dialogue, so on and so forth. And here, the kind of decisions that India makes and the kind of steps India take has a key to our future Indo-US relations. Please understand that these decisions or these talks will have a key to our future Indo-US relations. Now, India cannot make a mistake like this, but India also has to understand, of course, it's not a big mistake or it's we can't call it something grave, but then here a lot of things are at stake and India cannot afford to make a mistake. So India has to keep in mind about who is coming down, Mr. Mike Pompeo, who are his adversaries, and what are the exit polls or the opinion polls are saying about Donald Trump or Joe Biden, his adversary. So let us see how India can talk it out and what are the aspects that India can focus in this particular 2+2 dialogue according to the author. Now the author says that India should talk on three major agendas. One is the LAC or the Ladakh region. India should talk on the maritime sphere or the South China Sea or the Indo-Pacific region. Then India should talk about SAARC. So first let us discuss the importance of the maritime cooperation. Here this becomes important because India is trying to spread its influence in the Pacific region and to trying to control China's influence in the region. Same thing is trying to be done by USA through the quadrilateral grouping. As you know, USA is also part of the quadrilateral grouping, and several military exercise or naval exercise like Malabar, which happens in this region. And also India is trying to talk about the BECAS agreement, which is also called as the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, that India has an important role to play with and will also hold important relevance from the Indo-US relationship point of view. Apart from this, you can talk about the SAARC, because when Mike Pompeo is coming down, he's not just coming to India, but he's also going to visit Sri Lanka and Maldives. Now, these two countries have been severely affected due to China's influence, and SAARC can be one of those ways that India can cooperate with these countries. Now, you need to know that Sri Lanka has been has been asking India's debt assistance, but India has not been able to provide it due to its economic scenario. But if the SAARC is revived and these countries come back to their position through the help of USA, we can make sure that we are engaging with Pakistan in the right kind of aspect, and the whole South Asian power is in such a manner that China cannot influence any of this, because if some countries like Sri Lanka or Maldives move towards China, India can ask for their rebuttal or ask for them to come back through the SAARC point of view. So then SAARC becomes important. Most importantly is the Ladakh point of view. We have to discuss India's collaboration with USA from the Ladakh point of view, because first of all USA supplies us with defense equipments and also arms and ammunitions. Now in the Ladakh point of view, where there is a scenario where China is bringing their weapons and China is showing off their power, India also needs to have it, not show off, but have it, and USA can provide us with these kind of equipments. Next important aspect is Pakistan angle. You know that USA and Pakistan are great friends, and USA can have considerable influence on Pakistan. And if Pakistan is favoring China in the alignment or the penetration in the Ladakh region, USA can stress influence on Pakistan and say, please, my dear friend, come back. It is their point of view, it is their problem, they will sort it on their own. You do not interfere in it. Hence, all these kind of important aspects need to be discussed in the right manner, and this gamble has to be played in the most proper manner, is what the author is telling us here, which makes perfect sense. Apart from this, we can also discuss the trade aspect, where we have the generalized system of preferences and India has been kept out of it. We can discuss about the new technologies that we can collaborate on, like 5G, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. We can also talk about how we are importing S-400 or the Triumph missiles from Russia, and why USA should not place us in the CATSA law, that is countering American adversaries through imposing sanctions. These things can be discussed, and this is a very calculated gamble that India is supposed to play here, considering who is this person, who is Mr. Donald Trump, who is Mr. Joe Biden, and what understanding do they have of the international relations scenario and how it will pan out on the India's international stature. These things become very, very important, and we have to see how Honorable Defense Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh and Mr. S. Shankar, Honorable Minister for External Affairs, play out this gamble. How balanced or how nuanced perspective do they take so that the future of Indo-US relations is dependent on this very summit? Talking about Mr. Trump, for whom our Prime Minister Modi did such great things like the Houston summit, where Prime Minister Modi participated and showed them that our Indian diaspora has a significant role to play, and Trump is a great human being. And then he visited India, and then this Ahmedabad summit happened. All those things happened. Namaste Trump and all that happened. But today we found that Mr. Trump is calling Indian air as filthy. But again, this is a quite important aspect because this contributes to the kind of understanding that Mr. Trump has of India and the kind of opinion that Trump has towards India. So the steps that are going to be taken should be very, very carefully calculated is what we need to understand. I hope this concept is clear. Let us move to the next topic. The next topic is about United Nations, which is reaching 75 years of its existence. It caters to GS paper 2 or international relations. Now, United Nations turning at 75 is a great thing because it's a very important body for the world order. But the author is of the opinion that United Nations today suffers from stagnation. It suffers from stagnation and it's struggling between principle and power. Right? He says it's struggling between principle and power because the principles that UN stands for is multilateralism, it's a global world order, and mutual prosperity. These are the principles it stands for. But the power wielded by P5 nations has a considerable influence on this, and it's not exactly helping UN to progress in the right manner. Now, what we need to understand is how UN became this kind of a body, turned out to be this kind of a body. Now, we need to understand it was exactly formed right after the World War II, and we know that right after World War II, the world was pushed into a Cold War scenario fought between USA and USSR. Now we know that the whole idea of the Cold War was spreading ideologies, the democratic ideology or the communist ideology, and as we know, as time progressed, Mikhail Gorbachev came to power for USSR or Russia, and it became a democracy today. Of course, today, under the regime of Vladimir Putin, it does not exactly follow democracy, but Russia called itself a democracy from a communist country. And the USA's ideology won, and most of the world became USA dominated world, not a Cold War world, but from Cold War world it became USA dominated world. And here USA tried to give some power to UNO to sort out some kind of civil war, some kind of issues it tried to sort out. But as time progressed, there emerged superpowers. Superpowers in the form of Russia, in the form of China, in the form of Iran. These superpowers again snatched these principles away from the UNO and said we are moving towards a unipolar world order, and our followers will follow us. They will not follow a multilateral or a multipolar world order. And today, there are so many tensions across the world. The whole West Asia scenario is under so much strain. There is US China trade war going on. India Pakistan issue persists. Israel Palestine issue persists. And we are nowhere going towards a mutual peace and mutual world order scenario. And he talks about how these P5 countries are so dominant and so powerful that they are curbing the whole idea of giving power to many nations and having a shared prosperity kind of point of view. Now, these P5 nations, including USA, UK, China, France, and you can talk about the Russia. So these countries have a very, very different perspective about different things. Now, if you talk about India's membership in the United Nations non-permanent membership for Security Council, all of its friends supported it except China. Now, because of China, UN Security Council, India did not get a seat in the United Nations Security Council all this while. This is one example of how these countries differ from their point of view, and these countries have mutual differences, and how these countries and their mutual differences and their misuse of the veto power or arbitrary use of the veto power snatches away the principles that United Nations stand for. So the author ends the article by saying that today United Nations is a P5 dominated organization, and the world is also becoming a P5 dominated world. That is why he calls that UN is suffering from stagnation and a struggle between principle and power. I hope this idea is clear. Let us move on to the next topic. The next topic talks about Amanherbert tests. I have given it the title as Amanherbert test because this article predominantly talks about how in India there have been several tests that are developed. This topic caters to GS paper 2, and these several tests that have been developed in India are from various bodies like the CSIR body, which is called as the Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, which is a CSIR body, and also IIT Kharagpur. Now, because of the development of these indigenous tests, we have seen that India is able to test a lot more number of people, or at least 1.5 million people in a span of a certain period. And due to this testing, we have increased our capacities and we have been able to track this thing in a right manner. And today, when there is festivities going on, when there is Dashera, Diwali coming up, there are chances that people can contract it more. And due to these tests, we can control it or we can take care of it in the right scenario. Of course, we cannot stop it, but we can control it. And this also points out to the fact why India needs to flush in funds in science and technology, particularly research and development, where we can come up with such indigenous, amazing Atmanirbhar ideas where we can solve our own problems. We don't have to be dependent on others. This is how even the vaccine scenario might work, where we will have to be dependent on our own things, not dependent on anyone else. That is why I've called this test as Atmanirbhar test, because they are our own, and India is moving towards self-reliance and developing our own indigenous technologies. I hope this idea is clear about this editorial. Nothing more, nothing deep to be understood or dwelled upon. Very simple, very plain idea. You can use these points to add in your aspects of Atmanirbharta or India moving Atmanirbhar camp. With this, let us move on to the next topic. The next topic is catering to basics of economics, GS paper 3 and your prelims as well. The basics that we are talking about is CPI or the Consumer Price Index. Now, the Consumer Price Index measures the changes in the price level of a basket of goods and services bought by households or individuals. Let me repeat it. It's a proper textbook definition. Consumer Price Index or CPI measures the changes in price level of a basket of goods and services bought by households or individuals. Now, it is the measure of how price changes at the consumer level. Right? It is a measure of how price changes at the consumer level, and it has a very important role in counting inflation, in counting deflation or such aspects, and also has a very contributory role in developing policies or policy rates. Hence, CPI is very important. As the name says, it's consumer price index. We need to understand it is counting or measuring price changes from the consumer point of view or the household point of view, not from a bulk or a wholesale point of view. Now, there are various types of CPI that we need to understand. CPI for industrial worker, CPI for agriculture labor, CPI for rural laborers, and CPI for urban non-manual employees. Now, we need to know here that CPI for industrial workers has been revised. The base year for the CPI industrial workers has been revised to 2016 from 2011-12. The news is here. CPI for industrial worker base year revised to 2016. New series not to affect DNS allowance given to government staff. So industrial workers are not just those people who work in industries. They can also include those people who are from working class. They work in the government sector. They work in factories, mines, motor transport, services, railways, electricity generation, etc. So now the CPI for industrial workers base year has been changed to 2016 from 2011, and these four types of CPI are different because the CPI for industrial workers, agriculture labor and rural labor is calculated or put forth by the Labor Bureau under the Ministry of Labor and Employment, but the CPI for urban non-manual employees is put forth by NSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, or MOSPI, how we call it, or NSO, which is a body under MOSPI. So this is a clear idea about CPI, which is basics of economics and plays a very important role in your prelims examination. Now the questions trends is changing towards not direct questions, what is CPI, what is WPI, but how it plays an important role is the kind of questions that are coming in these days. I hope the concept is clear. Let us move on to the last topic of the day. Now the last topic of the day caters to defense, science and technology for your prelims examination. First we have the INS Kavaratti. INS Kavaratti has been commissioned by the Army Chief into the Indian Navy. Let us learn what is INS Kavaratti. INS Kavaratti is a stealth corvette, which simply means a small warship. INS Kavaratti is a stealth corvette or a small warship. Kavaratti is the capital of the which island? Write to me in the comment section. It's a capital city of a very important island or archipelago or a set of islands. Write to me which is that. So INS Kavaratti has been formed under the Project 28 as a Kamrota class corvette, and this is now commissioned into the Indian Navy. This is an anti-submarine warfare stealth corvette which is used to destroy submarines and has been developed at Kolkata or has been built at Kolkata by Garden Reach shipbuilders and engineers. This is not very important, but know the location. It is from Kolkata. It has some state-of-the-art weapons, state-of-the-art facilities where it can be used for increasing defense capabilities and also for long endurance and long deployments. So these are some basic facts about INS Kavaratti. It is a stealth corvette or a small warship built under Project 28 of the Kamrota class. It's an anti-submarine warfare ship built at Kolkata, and it has some state-of-the-art warfare and state-of-the-art facilities. Please remember INS Kavaratti. Project 28 also. There is other project which is Project 75 that is related to submarines. Please don't get confused. This is Project 28. Another important aspect is the Nag missiles. Let me clear the space. The Nag missiles are anti-tank missiles. What is an anti-tank missile? A missile so powerful that it can destroy a whole tank itself. So as you know, these are tanks which are very, very important part of the artillery and are very powerful weapons, and these anti-tank missiles can destroy this tank itself. Now let us learn some facts. This anti-tank missile called as Nag means cobra or snake in Hindi, is an anti-tank missile developed indigenously by DRDO. Right? It is indigenously developed by DRDO under the IGMDP program. IGMDP program stands for Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. Again, I repeat, it is built under IGMDP, Integrated Guided Missile Development Program by the DRDO. So as you know, this IGDMP has several missiles built under it. Let us remember the mnemonic as Patna, Prithvi, Agni, Trishul, Nag and Akash, and Nag is here, which is an anti-tank missile. So this Nag can work in all weather conditions, rain, summer, winter, all weather conditions. Minimum range of 500 meters to maximum range of 4 kilometers. So if you are 4 kilometers away from the tank and if you launch this missile, it will get destroyed. Right? It can be launched from land as well as air. Remember this, it can be launched both from land as well as air, and the air version is for helicopters, and the helicopters version for the Nag missile is called as Helena. For the Nag missile, which is the helicopter version, is called as Helena. It can be launched from helicopters like Dhruv, which is a advanced light helicopter, and Rudra helicopter, which is an attack helicopter. Hence, the Nag missile becomes very, very important from the defense point of view of science and technology. Nag is an anti-tank missile developed by DRDO under the IGMDP program, which is a missile that can be launched from 500 meters to 4 kilometers its range, and it can be launched from both land and air. And the air version is called as the Helena. It is working in all weather conditions. Well, that's it from today's discussions. If you have any doubts or any feedback, write to us in the comment section. Stay tuned to RS Agarwal for more videos. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.